Is that a splitter? I think that's a splitter.
A lot of manufacturers are making sweet aero kits these days. They're not just splitters, they're doing side skirts, they're doing air dams. I think they look super cool, and I was inspired by a particular Lambo. They don't sell them for an 81 Firebird, so I had to make one. So the beginning of this story starts with the inspiration for a body kit from a Lambo. The front end of this Lambo kind of looks like a bat signal, and I really thought it was a cool shape. And they had some side skirts on the car as well. So when I had this in my head, I noticed that the front end of my Firebird has a similar shape to it. So I was inspired to put a splitter on the front of my Firebird. I wanted to keep the same kind of profile and shape. I thought it would be really cool to put side skirts on it as well. After doing a bunch of research and figuring out why you put a splitter on the front and why you put side skirts on the side of your car, I learned that you have high pressure on top of the car and low pressure underneath the car. These parts are basically preventing the air from getting underneath the car, filling the low pressure area, because if there's high pressure under your car wants to fly into the air. We're making the entire car a wing. So we're basically just trying to keep all of the air from going underneath the car and just passing over the vehicle. The front splitter has a little bit of a way of putting the air into the motor or going through your brakes, whichever design that your car has. And the side skirts I thought would be really cool on this car because of the round shape on the side. It's not like a modern car where it goes straight down. I figured the side skirts would help a lot from this, the air from anywhere from here down getting sucked into the underside of the car. And after driving on the freeway with it finished, I can confirm that this stabilizes my car significantly, more than some good shocks. The next bit of research that I had to do was figuring out the materials that are typically made. So most raced applications, people use quite thick aluminum because you actually need a huge amount of surface area and you need that to be strong. You're also going to need to find somewhere to bolt this on your car where it can really, it needs to be attached to your vehicle very well. Since I'm not doing a race application, this is mainly just for looks. It happened to end up working pretty good, but I just like the looks of it. So I went with 1/4-inch ABS plastic. A lot of people on the internet are going with 1/8-inch plastic, and I learned from them that you're not going to be able to get that much material off the front of the car because it'll just become floppy. So we put some supports on there, and if I was going to go any more than the length that I have on this car, we would have to bump up the thickness of material. I also read that some people are making these out of wood, and I don't know if that sounds like a super great idea. I suppose it's like cheaper, but I feel like the plastic, it's going to flex a little bit more, and it basically costs the same. So I chose to go with plastic, ABS plastic. And I got the, what they call the texture on the top of the ABS plastic is called hair cell. So I got the hair cell to match my louvers that are on the back of the car. Now the next step in the process was finding a bunch of cardboard, which I coincidentally had a bunch of big cardboard from the wheels I bought. And so I started working on some shapes. This is one of the final shapes here for the splitter. Here's a side skirt. I actually only made one side skirt because I wanted them both to be the same. So, yeah, you can see the little foldy guy there. So I spent a lot of time shaping the cardboard, just tossing out designs, measuring things out. I had to make sure that the geometry is correct so that the corners mesh together and that the dimensions are proper. Where the splitter is thicker on the sides, I wanted it to line up with my blinkers because they have a similar shape to them. And it ended up turning out really well. I'm super glad that I actually moved that line in like 3 or 4 inches. Now the next step was actually super funny. I had to pick up this 4x8 sheet of plastic, and I was lucky. I have a plastic distributor right downtown. It wasn't very far away. It's like 4 miles. Top speed limit was 35. So I put this plastic on top of my Subaru and I started driving around with it. I had all kinds of fun experiences. Basically what happened was I had a bungee cord from the middle of it holding it down on my windshield wipers, and it started raining, and I had such an automatic reaction to turn my windshield wipers on from living in Washington. So I got my plastic. Oh, Well, I turned my windshield wipers on. I just couldn't help it. I ended up flipping them on like twice, and it just would wipe the bungee cord right off the car. It was a fun experience. I did it. I fucking did it. God damn it. What the fuck? They're stuck halfway now, and I don't know what to do. Next up was cutting and shaping. Now this was definitely a learning experience. If you cut with a saw, say a jigsaw, and you have it reciprocating way too fast, it will actually melt the plastic. So you can't stop, because you'll basically leave a notch in the plastic, and it won't have a good profile to it. So a ton of time went into this. I ended up borrowing a router from my dad to router down the edges of it. It gave it a really nice profile. But after I had already mounted them on the car, I discovered that if I took 60 grit sandpaper and a 12-inch block, that if I just really sanded all those lines down, that it would eventually smooth them out, and it gave it a really nice profile. I went ahead and followed it up with different layers of sandpaper. I went all the way from 60 grit to 1000 grit, and then I had a leftover headlight polishing kit for making that short on the Subaru headlights. So I tried that out, and I was able to polish the side here on the part that folds up. I was able to polish that back out so that it's like a gloss finish, and it almost looks factory. I also took that down the whole edge because I really wanted it to have a purchase look. I didn't want to make it look like I made it in my garage, even though I did. Cutting this stuff, I tried several different things cutting it. And then I remembered that I have a Sawzall. The Sawzall ended up being the easiest thing to cut this with. The jigsaw's fine, but the jigsaw that I have borrowed from my dad is literally from the 60s, and it looks like a KitchenAid mixer. So and I broke a blade. I didn't want to go buy more of them. I remembered that I had the Sawzall, busted that guy out. Once I cut and adjusted with the Sawzall, everything was all good. Bending the plastic. Yeah, that was actually really cool. I put it up on my lift. I used a lot of patience and a heat gun, and I heated it up for a really long time as I applied pressure to it with a piece of wood. And eventually, once it got really warm, just like PVC piping, it pretty much just started to let go. I was able to bend it down, which is up, configured the way it is on the car, but I bent it down and then just cooled it off, and they both came out very similar. I feel like they came out pretty good. This was a really fun project, and it was super satisfying once all the work was done. So if you liked the video, like and subscribe. Leave me comments down below. Tell me what kind of projects you're working on.